They say every house has its secrets. Ours was built into the bones of the place, a silent, waiting thing behind a wall of my childhood closet. I was 10 when I found it. I'm 30 now, and I've spent every day since trying to forget what was written inside. The first chill of autumn had set in, and our old Victorian house on Hemlock Street groaned and settled like a living beast. I was 10, a scrawny kid named Eli, and the house was my kingdom and my prison. It was too big, too dark, and full of shadows that didn't quite match the furniture. My sanctuary was my room, but even that felt uneasy. The closet was a deep, walk-in cavern, always smelling of mothballs and damp wood. That day, I was chasing a rogue baseball that had rolled into the back corner. As I fumbled for it in the dim light, my hand pushed against the wooden slats at the very back. To my surprise, the entire back panel shifted with a gritty, reluctant scrape. My heart hammered against my ribs. A secret passage. Every kid's dream. I pushed harder, my small frame straining. With a final, groaning protest, the panel swung inward, revealing a gaping blackness that smelled of stale air and ancient dust. I grabbed my Batman flashlight, its beam a tiny, brave sword in the overwhelming dark. The space was narrow, not a room but a corridor, barely wider than my shoulders. The walls were rough, unfinished plaster, and cobwebs draped across my face like ghostly veils. I shuffled forward, the beam of my flashlight dancing over the emptiness. And then it stopped on the far wall. It wasn't empty. Scratched into the plaster, from floor to ceiling, were tallies. Thousands upon thousands of little lines, grouped in fives. A frantic census of some unseen population. IT watches when you sleep. A cold dread, pure and electric, shot down my spine. I stumbled back, scrambling out of that narrow space, and shoved the closet panel shut as if I could seal away a demon. I didn't tell my parents. They would have called it a childish fantasy, boarded it up, and never understood the primal fear that message ignited in me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house was a footstep. Every rustle of the wind in the trees was a whisper. I lay rigid in my bed, staring at the closet door, which I'd barricaded with a chair. I felt a presence, a patient, heavy gaze from the other side of the wall. The words echoed in my mind. It watches when you sleep. The next day, curiosity, that treacherous human flaw, overpowered my fear. I had to go back. I had to see if there was more. The stale air seemed thicker this time, more oppressive. My flashlight beam found the first message again, and then, lower to the ground, another, smaller set of words. IT whispers your name. Don't answer. A whimper escaped my lips. I wanted to run, but my feet were rooted. I swept the light around and saw, in a dusty corner, a small, discarded object. It was a child's teddy bear, old and moth-eaten, one button eye missing. But it was the state of it that made my blood run cold. It had been torn apart, not by time, but with violence. Its stuffing was pulled out, and its head was twisted almost completely around. This wasn't a game anymore. This was a record, a warning. The following week was a slow descent into a nightmare. I started hearing things, a faint, scratching sound from the closet wall, like nails on plaster. It would come just as I was on the edge of sleep. I began sleeping with the lights on, dark circles forming under my eyes. My parents blamed it on too much television. I became obsessed. After school, I would venture into the hidden space, my heart a frantic drum in my chest. I found more messages, each more terrifying than the last. IT stands in the corner. I started checking the corners of my room constantly. IT wears a face that isn't its own. I became terrified of reflections in windows at night. The entity in the messages had no name, but it had rules. It was a predator that operated on the periphery of perception. And according to the final, largest message I found, scrawled in a frantic, sprawling hand near the floor. It was closing in. It knows I'm in here. It's learning how to open the door. That was the last day I ever went into the hidden room. I ran out, sobbing, and didn't just push the panel shut. I dragged my heavy dresser in front of it, my small body straining with a terror I didn't fully understand. That night, the scratching didn't just come from the closet. It came from the panel itself. A slow, deliberate scrape, scrape, scrape. Then it stopped, and a new sound began. A soft, wet, clicking sound, like a tongue against the roof of a mouth. It was right on the other side of the panel, right behind my dresser. I pulled the covers over my head, trembling, praying for morning. The clicking stopped and was replaced by the faintest, most guttural whisper. I couldn't make out words, just a sound that was full of malice and a terrible, ancient hunger. Then, the closet door handle began to rattle. Not violently, but thoughtfully, as if someone, or something, was testing it, learning it. I screamed a raw, piercing sound that tore through the silent house. My parents came running, flipping on the light. The second the light flooded the room, every sound ceased. The rattling stopped. The whispering vanished. My parents found me drenched in sweat, pointing a trembling finger at the closet. My father, annoyed and half asleep, moved the dresser I'd piled up. He opened the closet door and shone a light inside. "See, Eli," he said, his voice heavy with sleep. "Nothing. It's just an old closet. Bad dream." But he didn't check the back panel. He didn't see the tiny, almost imperceptible crack of darkness where it hadn't been fully closed, where something had pushed it open from the inside, just enough to peek out. I never slept in that room again. I moved to the sofa downstairs until we eventually moved away a year later. The new family, with their bright, smiling faces, never asked why the closet in the boys' room had 3 separate deadbolts on the outside of the door. We never told them. I'm a grown man now. I live in a modern apartment with no closets, just open-plan wardrobes. But sometimes, in the dead of night, when the city is quiet, I'll jolt awake from a dead sleep. My heart will be pounding, and my skin will be slick with cold sweat. And I'll lie there, perfectly still, listening, because I know, with a certainty that chills my soul, that it's no longer behind my closet. It's out here. And after all these years, it's still learning. It's learned about windows. It's learned about doors that aren't locked. And I know, deep down, that it never really stopped watching me sleep. It was just waiting for the lights to go out for good.